to my viewers. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And as usual, I like to begin with first pressing record and then check in why the heck did I. Oh, the ascendant ingressed into Sagittarius. And I'm an Aries Mercury, so my joke is that I don't elect my speech, I speak, and then I tune into the chart to see why did I do what I do. And that is, in many cases, that's very good. The ascendant is just 0 degrees Sagittarius. Um, Jupiter is in the sixth house of this chart in Taurus. Yes, I know. I'm not going to clean my phone now. 3 degrees Taurus separating from the Jupiter Rahu. I hope you had a good Jupiter Rahu. It could go to excess, and I've heard cases. Um, yeah, but other than that, it was, I think, an okay time. I haven't checked the news, but now and I was definitely up tempo, and now we are with Jupiter here in the sixth house in Taurus for the spontaneous election. The moon is in the 12th house in Scorpio. Yeah, it's separating from the nodes. It's separating from Jupiter. It's applying to slowly applying to oppose Mercury in 6 degrees Taurus. And the descendant is not on Uranus because it is 0 degrees Gemini, which applies to my Chiron, and it also applies to Sedna. So we'll see how that turns out. I'm getting to look at Venus here. Venus is applying to oppose Pluto, which is going to be probably the signature of this lunation, because I was called to look at Venus, 26 degrees Cancer. So, yeah, oh, she squares my Mercury. Okay, so Mars in Leo, Lilith in Leo, nodes still in Taurus and Scorpio, 2 degrees, very close to entering their new eclipse cycle, which is Aries and Libra tropically. Saturn sitting pretty in 6 degrees Pisces for a while now. And Pluto is only minutes from retrograding into Capricorn. Without further ado, oh, the astral. Okay, so this is Jupiter day, Mercury hour, and again, Mercury is in Taurus in the sixth house here, ruling the seventh and ruling Vostrogo, and ruling the 10th. Okay, because this is the 12th here. Scorpio is the 12th. Midheaven in 9 degrees Virgo. So the midheaven is ruled by the ruler of the hour and the ascendant ruled by the ruler of the day. And this is why I surely felt like I want to do a full moon, something about Sag. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to Astro Tools, monthly astro calendar. And we have a full moon in Sagittarius. Just a few days from now, it's going to be on 4th June where I am. I know it's 3rd June, probably in Australia. And yeah, and no, it's 4th June, probably in Australia it's 4th, but or 5th even, but in the United States it's still the 3rd of June. So depending on where you watch, you can just change the location. And this is the ascendant in my area, but I'm going to ignore ascendant and midheaven when I'm doing the interpretation because I want it to be more general. And the moon is going to be in 13 degrees Sag, when the sun is going to be in 13 degrees Mercury. This is a middle phase, a full moon middle phase of both respectively. And as we can see, yes, Venus is only 2 degrees from hardly opposing Pluto. This is completely in opposition. Venus is ruled by the moon, so it's good to look at what is in Leo and what is in Venus because every lunation is moon and sun. So what's in Cancer and what's in Leo will always have significance when we are looking at lunation phases. Venus in opposing Pluto is a big deal. So Venus is ruled by the moon that is in Sag. Um, Pluto is ruled by Saturn that is in 7 degrees Pisces at the time of the lunation. So Saturn is not making any particular major aspect to Venus at the time of the lunation, but this is a time where we can expect, if it's a full moon, so there's something we're letting go and something that's coming into fruition. We might be learning about certain issues to do with women. It can be disempowered women who are also mothers or caregivers. It can also be around fertility, because both signify fertility. So things to do with fertility, uh, with Pluto here, the conflict these women have is no longer at this point with the government, but actually with society. Okay? And again, think about breastfeeding and about the reactions of society to a woman who is breastfeeding in public. It's more like these complex things where now we are not looking at, oh, how terrible the government is, but look at society, okay? Or a woman leaving her child, let's say if you're in Finland, there's no problem to leave your child in your, I call it wagon, the thing you carry the child with, okay? The wagon you carry, I know it has a special name, but I don't know what it is, and to go to the grocery store and then come back. Because in Finland, you're not afraid that something will happen to the child. But in other countries, if a woman did that, immediately it would be women that would say, how come you leave your child like this? You're irresponsible, you're this, you're that. And so here we have women that, or caregivers or mothers that are dealing with having to find their power, but this time not in the face of the government as much as in the face of society. Okay? Now women are worried not so much about the hidden leadership, but rather hidden societies, because Pluto can be hidden. Pluto, and I will make a dedicated video to Pluto in Saturn sign as composting time. But Pluto, um, it, it reveals what is hidden. And so when we talk about Pluto, we talk about both something that is hidden and something that will be composted and will be rejuvenated and will be exposed. Okay? And so there are certain hidden societies, and these are not. These are actually societies that are more decentralized. So certain decentralized powers are creating a conflict or are in a conflict position with the Venusian. So the Venusian lunar, it can be a young mother, it can be the fertility of women. Aquarius is also science, and so if you think about the COVID fiasco, okay, with the injections, that also interfered with fertility, and it was easiest to see it with people who have wombs because they menstruate. And if they had irregularities in menstruation that were unusual, then what was supposed to wake doctors up was not waking even women doctors up. And that was one of the things where that was still the government, but it was ushering us to the situation where oppression is hidden by scientific endeavor. Okay, so the scientific endeavor is oppressionist. And so we must pay attention to this full moon because it is going to, something started 6 months ago or even a year ago. So where were we in 2022? Okay, June 2022. Okay, in regards to both our Cancer, Leo, Gemini, and Sagittarius houses, and on Pluto in Aquarius, something is culminating now and exposing this position of um, oppression. Okay, something is exposed. Pluto retrograde is where we reflect upon the power of something, reflecting upon the power scientific dogma has in our life, reflecting upon the power hidden decentralized societies have in our life. Um, Reflecting upon, and for some people that would be alien societies as well, reflecting upon the concept of alien society. Recently in the astrology podcast they had a nice discussion about, I don't remember what was the name of the hypothesis. Yeah, we already see the moon here in Scorpio now. um, and that was that societies or extraterrestrial societies are not all friendly, and we come with a naivete looking for signs where it's like, no, you should actually be hiding yourself. So this is, the curiosity versus fear. uh, and them, people who have been talking about medical experiments then also enjoined with societies that are extraterrestrial. So now it sounds like a lunatic, but will it still be sounding lunatic 20 years from now? Okay, we're not sure. So that is another facet of this aspect. Now let's go to what is ruled by the sun. And right now, Mars and Lilith are ruled by the sun because they are in Leo. So Mars is in 8 degrees Leo, separating from the nodes and from a square to Jupiter. And the moon is separating from a trine to Mars. Okay, so the only applying aspect Mars makes is to conjunct Lilith. Very right aspect because Lilith is an asteroid. And here I think they note the asteroid, it's not the point Lilith. Or do they mean the point? I think here is Black Moon Lilith, so it is the point. Um, and so, by merit of the sun, certain figures that are Lilith figures are going to either play a certain role in mass media, because we're talking Gemini, so it can be in the media, in the news, or photography. There recently was a Twitter discussion on whether Beyonce has a Leo, uh, not Leo ascendant for sure, because I think she has either Scorpio or Libra ascendant, but Leo Mars. And then it's supposed to be in her 10th house. So maybe we'll hear something about Beyonce. I'm not sure. I know she's having a tour right now. So, but other than that, certain figures that can be of Lilith nature or of Mars nature, so athletic women who are athletic and are like a sports star, and Lilith women, that can be, it can also be some women who are doing sex positive sex work. Okay, because here Lilith is separating from Mercury, no, is applying to Mercury and Uranus and separating from the moon. So like Mars, she's not doing very much. And because it is Lilith, then it's either the woman who talks or exposes something to do with like a sex scandal or with our leaders. Um, you think about the declaration from Monica Lewinsky when she finally said, I am also a part of the Me Too because I was abused by this man. Okay, he was abusive. Eventually, he was abusive. Then that can be one side of it. The other side of it is can also be something is revealed by someone who is actually doing sex education, or, and why am I saying education? Okay, because Mercury is to teach. The Sun is in Mercury sign in the middle phase, and to teach like a skill, Okay, and the sun is also a leader. So it can be a performer who is coming with a certain social awareness. Okay, Sun in Gemini, social awareness. So it can be both cases, either social awareness for the atrocities in sex industry by leaders in entertainment industry. You know, another kind of the um, minor Me Too stuff, or the other way around, a kind of a Dr. Ruth. Okay, it can also be kind of a Dr. Ruth, but without a doctor. It's like not necessarily a doctor with this placement. Mercury is more about tangible skill rather than like heavy Saturnian effect. And with Mars, it can be a person who is militant, or a person who is athletic, who is very active and has a high drive. So um, those are the kind of people we are likely to hear from. And now let's look at the rulers of the sun and moon, which also are relevant. And they are both in Taurus. So this means that in the arena of Taurus, there are opposing powers at play. Okay, there's Jupiter separating from the Jupiter Rahu. Okay, and there is Mercury applying to Uranus. So when I did my forecast, I addressed this as there can be certain leaders, Sol, okay, that's ruled by Mercury, that are either young, having a message towards children, having a message that is technological. Um, yeah. And I was thinking about the Elon Musks, and today I woke up and I had a dream. I had a funny dream that I'm pitching something to Elon Musk, and he eventually pays 3 times what he planned from my services. But he tells me that he cannot pay right away because he's a business and he has to pay like later or something like that. It was something very weird. Um, but Elon Musk has 29 degrees Gemini ascendant, and in my forecast, I was speaking about the Elon Musk of the world. I don't know what is he doing. I know he's going through a great change and transformation in the way that he's running his businesses in general. But it can definitely be leaders to do with technology or so high tech people. So definitely, I would not be surprised if we'll hear something from Elon Musk. And then on the other side, there are the people, which is the moon, which are more traditional. Jupiter, because Jupiter in Taurus is more traditional. And I was also saying that governments, okay, leaders of nations can attempt at a digital coin, or it can try to launch something, or something will be revealed about the plan to have a digital coin, or maybe one global coin. But here, I don't think it is one world government with this particular one, because it's civil society, but it also can be. So I really don't know. And it's going to be sudden news or disrupted news or something disrupted about the news, because Mercury is applying to Uranus, which is a planet of sometimes blessed disruption, but definitely a fated disruption. There can also be news about children, judges, traders, um, volatility of you know digital coins that can all take place. And volatility, it's volatility. It just means as unexpected. It can be a great booming. It could also be a bit of a downfall, okay? Because we don't know. So Jupiter tells me that there is also something traditional about the religion, okay? And the religion and the philosophy of the people moon has to do with land. So people want land, okay? People want beauty, people want resources, people want their money, okay? They want to make more money. They want sweet things, okay? They want to grow fruits, for example. They want meat, okay? They don't want printed fish. They want a cow. Okay, because Taurus can also be food, and certain philosophies to do with the voice or sound or the senses, and this Jupiter and Mercury are ruling the opposite poles of this lunation. So there's going to be a conflict of two sides that only partially see each other, but to see the hidden motives, they're genuinely the same motives. Okay, they're both traditional. One is doing this with technology, the other maybe with philosophy or religion, but they are both having similar motivations because both the ruler of the sun and the ruler of the moon are in Taurus. So the motivation of Taurus, what it wants to create. But they see each other through the moon opposing the sun, which is seeing each other, but they see each other through this conflict, and they might be tempted to think that their motives are conflicting. Well, in fact, it's not necessarily so with this one. It's not necessarily so. Everybody wants land, everybody wants beauty, everybody wants, you know. And Uranus tends to distribute things on a mass scale. So Uranus wants to distribute land on a mass scale. It awakens people to how important is having your own land. You cannot revolt. One of the things that I had this eureka is like, oh, during the revolution, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, people revolted because they had lands. Okay, so if you don't have land, you cannot rebel at this, at these junctures. Your voice is not heard because you don't have property, you don't have resources. Basically, you don't have a voice when you don't have land. At least that was the stage back then. And or a certain type of beauty, okay, or a certain type of aesthetics that with Taurus is earthy. Okay? It's quite traditional. Um, but with Uranus, there can be something eccentric, something different, something unusual. So unusual beauty. Um, and the way in which this can play out, people can think that they are in conflict with leaders, but those leaders actually want something that is in favor of society, but they don't see how to do that. Okay, and I'm sorry for going down like putting on the spot Elon Musk, but I just immediately think about him in this sense, and I think this person grew up as a child of parents who had a diamond mine in South Africa, and he did not have a happy childhood. Okay, so he suffered a lot during his childhood, and he probably found refuge in certain technological advancement or working on things that he was excited about. And he made great achievements too. There are always going to be something wrong things when you try to do things that were not done before. There are always going to be things that, and if you watch I think I said it on my forecast when I discussed um, I don't remember where I said it, where I discussed that I had idea when I learned about chaos theory. I had idea about aligning the wavelength of the brain waves. That is something very similar to what Elon Musk is trying to do with Neuralink, but did not work in praxis for people who actually suffered from CPTSD and so on and so forth. But the thing is, what's the difference between me and Elon Musk is that I meet these people, I talk to these people, I have hands-on experience, and so there are a lot of things that I can say. Well, that looked like a great idea at its time, but it doesn't seem to work. And people like that who grew up in a very well off family don't see how certain values or traditional values, and for him, Taurus is the 12th house, they don't see how these values that they have so many blind spots, which is true to all of us. But when someone gains power and gains wealth and gains money and say, I want to do good for the world, okay, but they don't really see the good. Okay, think about when I was in university, we were living in houses in neighborhoods where were developing neighborhoods. And so many people didn't understand why would somebody spend so much money on a new phone and to do her nails if they have no money to eat. And it took a lot to try to even explain to them that for a person who doesn't see a future, those things first of all make them feel more humane. B, how are they supposed to apply for a job if they don't have the right look for it? um, so they try to level up by doing something or by making certain purchases that doesn't seem reasonable from the vantage point of a person who has never seen the actual real life of people in this position. Okay, so it doesn't mean that people cannot improve upon their choices, but we also need to understand how sometimes what we think is wrong choice is not necessarily so, and there's a lot to change for us as society so we can be more inclusive towards people. And so when you grow up, when your parents had the diamond mine and you were used to slavery, okay, you don't really see how is that not a part of nature, because this is what you grew up into. Okay, and when you had a bad childhood, so you also don't see how you can think that sometimes the slave person is happier than you, or this slave is happier than you, okay, or is at least not sadder than you. Like, you don't consider yourself necessarily more fortunate psychologically than a person who is poor. Okay, think about growing in a rich family, but um, having horrid experiences as a child. Okay, I'm not going to put words in the person's mouth because I didn't hear if you talk about the abusive childhood or not, and this, definitely it's not for me to judge. But if you had horrible experience growing up, and your family is wealthy, so you don't necessarily see yourself as that privileged. Okay, maybe you have more money, but are you that privileged? And so you don't really see a lot of things that are necessary for the people that you're trying to give services for, and the vision that you're trying to build has the challenge of literally, boots on ground, like seeing what is actually going on, what do people actually need. We have that a lot with leaders who, let's say this great leader have a son that is autistic or a child that is autistic, and so the solutions that they find are fit for wealthy families, but they're not fit for everyday children, although sometimes there can be advancement, like independent housing for neurodivergent people, which is like duh, but for the majority of society is like, no, you must put them somewhere and put them under 27 care, 24/7 care. It's like, no, these are people. They just don't work as you do, but they definitely do work. So that can be more of the situation that is actually more optimistic, but is difficult to communicate. For the people, it's difficult to communicate with the leaders because the people are more traditional and perhaps even more orthodox. And for the leaders, they come to revolutionize a land that they don't even know. Okay, because Taurus is the 12th from Gemini. Okay, so Mercury is the 12th from the Sun. And so you come to do something, you want to revolutionize land, okay? And, and there are so many things that you are blind to that you don't understand why you're running into this resistance. and you think you are the rebel. But it's like, but darling, you are the descendant of people who had a gold mine. You had generational wealth to do all the projects that you'll ever want to do, and yes, it was, and you saw how still difficult it is for you. So imagine a person that doesn't have that even. Okay, but it's not something that is easy to comprehend, because then you think, um, okay, I must say that I was in Netherlands, and I was talking with a nice lady about the shelters, and the fact that they expect the women in shelters that escaped violence to clean and to make the dishes and to cook for themselves. And she was like, well, isn't it normal to have responsibility? And I said, my darling, a person that escaped a situation like this, their body, they cannot sometimes even, either they cannot stop working, or they cannot even lift a pen, let alone themselves. They pray to God to be able to get up and go to the bathroom. What cooking? What cleaning? Are you out of your freaking mind? And you see, the people that try to help sometimes are not bad people, they just don't even get at the situation that they're trying to assist. And that is the problem we have with this donation. Okay, the people think that the leaders are against them. Okay, but the motives are actually similar. It's just that the leaders try to do this with technology, while the people require something that is more spiritual, something that is more philosophical. They require to be seen with different eyes, simply put. Okay, and the heart of this conflict is the Venusian. So it's mothers, it's women, or it's people who have wombs, and it's about fertility, nourishment. To some degrees, it can be female psychologist versus science, because the moon is also psychology, um, and there is a spiritual. Or these women want, the people and women want freedom, but they see freedom in a traditional way. Okay, how will you feel free? Well, I need to have my own land, my own home. um, I need to be able to have my own money. Okay, and that's not a good or bad thing. It's just that this is the concept of freedom for these people. Well, we are heading into a situation where Pluto retrograde is like, you can have your own land, but there is mass surveillance everywhere. There was a Twitter discussion about trade, and um, one of the people commented that they were from Russia, and they were like, "I don't know what financial crisis you are talking to. I'm living in Russia." And the person who made the post commented that you live in a mass surveillance country, so of course, from your perspective, you wouldn't know because you don't hear about this in the news. And I can know from outside your country because I see what you don't see, which is a very reasonable argument. But the point that I had to make there is, like, every country right now is a mass surveillance country, and we must get it. United States is no less mass surveillance than Russia or China. Even if you weren't in Model UN, think Edward Snowden, think the things that you're supposed to have in digestion. And so um, Pluto is having a completely different mindset about this. Okay, there's decentralized mass surveillance. There are maybe extraterrestrial civilization. There are all these things that people would get beta blockers if they talked about. But it looks like this is the transit where 20 years from now people will be speaking about these things in different voices, and and that takes time. And even for me, Aquarius is the 12th house, and this is the time where I begin to realize that a lot of the things that I thought were scientific are not exactly so. And those people that say, I have had experiments by whatnot, or alien kidnap or whatnot, and I'm beginning to understand, okay, maybe this is not at all a dream, or imagination, but maybe there are actually these occurrences in life, and we were not addressing them because, like anything scientific, because there was not enough voices, and there were people who were silencing these voices, then we weren't hearing these voices. Okay, and so it's hard to believe, but I'm beginning to understand that it's probably a very valid stories that we have been ignoring in society because of certain dogmas that we held to, and for good reasons. And there's another episode that I did about Pluto and Leo versus Pluto and Aquarius. Okay, the Cancer Leo versus the Cancer versus the Capricorn Aquarius, and the different epistemic standards for empiricism that we had. Okay, we talk about scientific materialism versus non-duality, um, and when could you advance scientifically and when not. Okay, talk about the Manhattan Project, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You could test certain theories that included probability, where while you could not do that, it not at any other time in histories, but at most other times in histories. Okay, the 70s and the 80s chaos theories suffered a lot of trying to get themselves research funding, while it was not too difficult to budget the Manhattan Project between two wars that eventually led to the ending of World War II. So, the good, the bad, and the difficult. Anything more about this lunation? Well, because you have to look at various houses, okay? This lunation is on the Gemini Sagittarius axis. So if I was doing a short, I would say, well, the mutable axis, so Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Gemini are going to feel this lunation the most. That being said, upon a closer look, which is why a bigger video exists, you can understand that every lunation involves whatever is in Cancer and whatever is in Leo, because those are the players of the lunation, and they rule Cancer and Leo. Okay, so you can't ignore what's happening in your Cancer house, and you can't ignore what's happening in your Leo house. And I look at where the rulers of the Sun and Moon, they're in Taurus. So you want to tell me Taurus won't be feeling this? Of course Taurus will be feeling this. If you have anything in Taurus in the first phase or in the third phase of Taurus, you're going to be feeling it quite intensely. It and then if it's Taurus, then of course it pertains to the fixed axis, which is Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, and Scorpio. Uh, and Cancer is the cardinal axis, so that literally means we are all going to feel that. Do understand, because of the way planets work, let's say you have a stellium, which is what we have right now in Taurus. Okay, we have Uranus, we have Jupiter, we have Mercury, and we have Rahu in Taurus. Depending on your definition for a stellium, you could call it a stellium. Let's say you had it in your birth chart. Would you consistently be of Taurian archetype? Maybe, but one of the things, and I heard Demetra George speaking about this in the astrology podcast, and that is that we tend to balance the axis. So it's very likely that you would also be Scorpio. Okay, I had a good friend that had a stellium in Capricorn. But whenever he wanted to relax, it was a great bonus to be with that person, because what made him relax was cooking, which is Cancer. Okay? So he had a stellium in Saturn sign, but he balanced this stellium whenever he wanted to relax by cooking. And then he was known not only for his scientific achievements, but also for his great cooking. Okay? So this is the way a stellium works. And in that way, let's say you have a Taurus stellium and you're going to feel this in particular, but it may create things for you that are actually scorpionic, that are like a crisis or rejuvenation or revolution or increased sexual activity to run away from what's going on in Taurus. All these things can happen. And so there really isn't a particular reasoning for me to say, oh, I'm going to do a sign by sign breakdown, because we are all affected by this. And then the question is how it will play out for you, or what is going on for you. Well, I would pay attention to the outer planets, to inner planets, to think that Uranus is going to be with Mercury and in Taurus. So, certain news, certain disruption, okay? Certain disruption is going to happen at around the time of the full moon. News about children, news to do with the law, with juristics, news to do with trade, um, a bubble or downfall are both possible with trade here. Um, and you're just going to hear some, or you're going to say something unusual. Who is Mercury in your chart? Okay, is it ruler of the seventh? Is it ruler of the first? Okay, if it's the ruler of your ascendant, if you're ascendant Gemini, you might be breaking some unusual news. Okay, you may have sudden news to say, or you have a sudden move that you make, or maybe you suddenly buy land or something like that. That can also be the case. Another thing I would look from outer planets to inner planets is, of course, Venus. That's applying to oppose Pluto. And my Venus applying to oppose Pluto stories that I ordered, another like two talismans from of Venus, of something that I previously ordered and liked, and it arrived with the note that I have to pay tax. And I'm like, it's not even that big of a purchase. And it's a buttercream and an essential, like an oil infusion. So it's kind of like, what the heck did I order that I have to pay something the equivalent of $50 for an American for taxes? I was like, that's so weird. And Pluto is in Saturn's sign. Saturn rules taxes. And here we have, you know, Venus in the sign of the people. It's kind of like, I just ordered something that's quite like, it's a body butter and an oil infusion. It's not that big of a purchase, and they require taxes that is almost a third of the purchase. For me as a citizen, something doesn't click. And it also makes me wonder, as a person who is an aromatherapist and is thinking about, okay, what if I sent my oils and somebody paid so and so, now they have to suddenly pay taxes. And so so that is what was a part of the story here. So there are certain situations where Venusian women or Venusian caregiver, and by the way, the talisman was accentuated. It was a Venus in Taurus, but it was also Moon Venus. So it was both, and now Venus is in the Moon sign, applying to oppose this retrograde Pluto. It's kind of like, okay, other than the fact that I didn't plan this in my budget, um, why on earth do I have to pay something like a third of the purchase that I'm making when it's produce for women? Okay, it's like cream, oils, and whatnot. Why do I have to pay tax for that? That is like basically like women tax. Would a man have to pay tax for a similar amount of purchase? I seriously doubt so. And that's very, very weird, and I also don't know what to do about it, who to turn to. So that is one of the things that, you know, people can deal or tackle. So Venus is applying to Pluto. Now, who is Venus for you? Is it you? Is it the neighbor? Is it the partner? Is it the mother? And who is the moon now? Lunar is usually pertaining to caregiver, but then where is Cancer in what house is Cancer? Okay, it can also be a child. If it's the fifth house, a teacher, maybe your teacher is pregnant and is dealing with some disempowerment or whatnot. If it's the ninth house, so who are these figures? Okay, who is the sun and the moon for you? Okay, it's not just parents. Um, so yeah, that is all something we need to kind of pay attention to, and those are the outer to inner planets, which I always like to pay emphasis to. Um, the supposed hard aspects that we have, well, Lilith is applying to trine Chiron. Okay, it's something that we need to pay attention. Um, Now let's look at asteroids, because why not? And as we enlarge the scope, we see that nothing is particularly surrounding the sun and the moon. Yes, Juno is in Gemini, about to have a Juno return for me, but Juno is in Gemini. Um, Vesta is quite close to Mercury and Uranus. Would she make an impact? I don't know. Okay, Aries is in safe distance from the mess, except that she squares Venus and Pluto. Okay, so Aries is still on, very much on, very active. Okay, Venus wants connection, she wants to feel safe. In this phase of Cancer, she may be severing connections, she may be saying goodbye in order to feel safer, while Aries has other motivations. Okay, Aries wants to get justice. Aries wants sometimes even to get revenge or to get this energy out of the body, and she kind of meets Venus in a place where Venus want to say, well, I just want to say bye, or if it's, what the situation for him is like, okay, I just want to pay that and take those things. Well, Aries is like, no, we're going to find the people to talk to, or we're going to do something. Or we're going to do, have Aries next to Mercury. It's like, we're going to steal something that's the worth of those 50 shekels from the people who are like, okay, I just want to, and the Venus is like, I just want to take my stuff and I'll pay the freaking tax and I'll get away. So this is the conflict that we have between Venus and Aries. Venus wants to just say bye bye. Okay, I'll pay you, and then I'll sever ties. I don't see your face anymore. And Aries is like, Venus, darling, you're gonna see their faces. You gotta do this now. You gotta. And Venus is already tired. Okay, she's at the end of Cancer. So it's those conflicts. Aries reminds us that justice needs to be made now when it's small and not wait for it to be bigger. Venus actually just wants to say bye bye. I don't owe you anything. Here, take that and get away from my life. But that would be interpreted as, oh, if she agrees to pay that, then she's going to agree to pay more. And Aries is like, I'm not having this. And that is something that we need to be especially attentive to at this lunation, because certain reactions are going to be, if you have something around that phase of Aries, certain reactions are going to look like they come out of nowhere and they do something very radical, because Aries is this radical. She's a radical. Okay, she a radical. Whether she has a vagina or has a penis, she a radical. She has something very radical to say in a way that is very provocative. And she's also right. So in many cases, because when here she squares Pluto, she does have something that is genuinely important, and that's genuinely true. So I'm less worried about Aries being this, narcissistic, or she's not being a Karen anyway. At least like most cases is, yes, she identifies corruption, and she wants to nip it in the, like, before it even begins to grow roots. She wants to turn the soil over, and just like don't let that even breed. That's her point of view. Well, Venus just wants to say, okay, take your 50 shekels and bye bye. But it's like, but how bye bye? You're still living in this country. Are you planning to not order anything from abroad, like, ever? And those are the interplays that we need to pay attention to. Sometimes it's within the person, and sometimes it's between people, between certain figures. So think about the woman who just wants to walk out. It's like, if you don't like it here, you can walk out. And Aries is like, I've walked out 20 times the past 2 years. The next person I need to walk out from, they're gonna cross over by any means necessary. In my own hands, I will kill them. Okay, that's where Aries is now, because Aries is also at the end of Aries. So Venus just wants to get away, sever ties. Aries wants to unroot that pattern. Okay, she's an outer planet. It's a pattern in society that made this problem, even when it's this small, because she understands how big it grows. So, um, very, very conflicting motivations. And Aries wants to start to create something new and to end. There is a saying that the old world, we destroy it until destroy to the gutter, and a new world shall be founded. This is the place where Aries is right now. Again, with the square to Pluto, it's completely that place. And then, and what you have to understand, that this is at that place, even though we've seen that in history, and we're like, oh, but the new world wasn't that great. It's like, well, in many ways it's better than the old world, and it's just so much needs to change. Something has got to be done, and had to be done yesterday for so many yesterdays, that there's just no two way about it. This will have to be done. And so Aries is a part of this nation, and that means, by all means, a lot of people will have to fight their wars when they're small, so that it doesn't get bigger. And that can sometimes means delay, that can sometimes means non-action. That is is a statement of, you're gonna honor me and my time, and my values. I see here is that Pallas in between Mars and Lilith. So yet again, okay, if this is Athena Pallas, which I think it is, yeah, this is Athena Pallas. Okay, so Athena Pallas between Mars and Lilith in Leo. And she's also trining this Chiron. Okay, so Athena Pallas between Mars and Lilith. Athena Pallas, if Aries is Xena the warrior in weapons and guns and whatnot, then Athena Pallas is Xena the warrior, um, perhaps with the soul, perhaps more in an intellectual fashion. So she's going to be responsible for the the word of the revolution, or the thinking faculties that govern, okay, these acts. And she's pretty much in accordance with Aries and Chiron. Okay, she's pretty much into, hey, yeah, we've tried to bring a new world where people are respected, where people can shine. And Antina Palacio in Leo, she wants to shine, where people can shine, where people can be appreciated. The word appreciation is big for any Leo placement. And we've been trying to be kind, we've been trying to be vulnerable. Leo, wearing your heart on your sleeve, but it doesn't seem to work. Okay, all the factors here are saying we have tried many yester's for something that should have been done yesterday, a couple of centuries ago, and it didn't bear fruit. We try to walk away, we try to stay, we try to communicate, we try to not communicate, we try to this, we try to that. It does not work. Okay, this is a very potent, like, this is so potent, and we can't ignore this. And this palace is in a sort of a mystic shape, mystic rectangle shape, with the sun, the moon, so the lunation, and car. I don't know what is this car, which is retrograde. Then I need to know more about the astros to fully delineate this, but definitely there's something going on here. um, that is intense. Okay, this donation happens only 3 degrees away from the axis of Antares in Sagittarius and Aldebaran. I know it is not in orb, um, but I do want you to understand that, let's say you have a natal placement in 13 degrees Sagittarius, Antares will play a part for you. Same respectively with Aldebaran. Antares is a certain victory that is philosophical or religious. Okay, it's about prevailing, it's about the self-made person, warrior, or to some extent also billionaire, because it's also of the nature of Mars. And Aldebaran is about material wealth. Okay, so here it's the Antares is the victory of the spirit, while Aldebaran is the victory in matter. Okay, matter is also very spiritual. Okay, do not underestimate material aspirations. Think about this: the domes of mosques, of churches, they are golden. They are made of gold. Okay, do not underestimate the spirituality of material aspirations, or the material side of spiritual aspirations. Okay, they're very interrelated, spirit and matter. So, yeah, this donation is bigger than it seems, because it doesn't seem, okay, it's not an eclipse, it's not on the nodes, it's not directly squaring Pluto or hitting on an outer planet. So it's almost difficult to, at first gaze, identify that this is a very big lunation. Again, it's not an eclipse, but it's a very big lunation because the ruler of the sun is applying to Uranus, because Venus, that is ruled by the moon, is applying to Pluto. Okay, um, because Jupiter is just separated from Rahu, and they're both rulers of the lunations are in one sign, okay, in Taurus, which ruler is opposing Pluto. Okay, it's not an eclipse. Is it disruptive? Yes. Will it have a 6 months and year effect? Of course, as any full and new moon. So now we are culminating, but this is a culmination that I would, no, yeah, it is a culmination that is embedded with, laden with conflict. Laden with conflict. Who will win in this case? I cannot tell you because it's about culminating something. But it's culminating something that has also to do with when the nodes were in Gemini and Sagittarius. I can't tell you, okay, what, but definitely disruptive news. Definitely disruptive news. How will you feel it in person? Definitely some disruptive communication, or yeah, disruptive communication. Definitely a point of finding your power is going to come up. Okay, what I fear, the lives I fear for the most is the life of people who will invalidate somebody's voice or position. Okay, Aries is at odds with Venus, but she's not at odds with Venus speaking up. Okay, she's at odds with Venus because Venus wants to, in this part of Cancer, Venus wants to sever ties, say bye bye, and leave. And Aries, like, no, darling, we have said bye bye and left so many times. We need to do more than that. Okay? And so, a person who will invalidate, especially for psychological gaslighting, people who psychologically gaslight mothers, women, caregivers, uh, um, and so on, in the name of science, I fear for their lives, darling. They will find themselves dead. The death that they wanted to bring upon the people that they gaslight, they will find it 7 times. Venus number. 7 times projected at them, but not with the merit of Venus, with the merit of Aries, because Aries has had it. And Aries is Mars ruled, okay? Mars in Leo is acting from the heart and is fixed. It can be a situation where some woman wants to just walk out and let go. Okay, let go of, I've had it, let go. Okay, take your money, take your this, take that, bye-bye, let go. And then comes another, maybe trans woman, maybe man, maybe some outcast. And she fights for this woman, but so much so that whoever tried to do harm to that woman, they find themselves dead. Okay, they find themselves dead. And even that woman says, oh my God, why did you do that? I just wanted to walk out. You said, darling, but did you not see? You have walked out so many times of your lives. It is time to kill. It is time to kill the problem from the root. And that can be surprising for this Venus. Okay? Because Aries is not against speaking up. It is against atrocities. If there are women who are enablers of atrocities, Aries can expose them. Okay? If you have been enabling of some abuse, then Aries can expose you. She can say, oh, you are enabling this person. Depending on the location, she can say it even in public. Okay? Think back a year ago, think back also 3 years ago, because when the nodes were in Sagittarius and Gemini, respectively. Think back to COVID, okay? Think back to COVID. Who were performing atrocities in the name of science? Aries can guillotine them. She won't take it. And it's unexpected exactly what will she do, or does she believe in, or what's going on. But definitely, and she's backed up by Pallas Athena. Okay, and Pallas Athena addresses Chiron and addresses what Aries has been through. Think about the time when Aries was with Chiron. Okay, think about that, because Pallas Athena is going to be a performer here or a leader here that's going to lead a certain civil unrest, and it's going to say, well, you tell us to blah, 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 blah. But look at how many times we try to initiate something new, better for humanity. And look at the situation still in 2023. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, it's not one, it's not two. The mass disruption, the mass destruction here is so potent as 10,000 nukes. Okay, this is very, very, Aries says, I am an asteroid that is going to clash into this universe and explode the fuck out of it. It's very, very potent. I'm not saying it's going to happen this lunation. Yes, there is a certain combination here that I am concerned about. I am concerned about. Okay. And again, we can also, it is at this point, we cannot judge anybody here. We cannot judge anybody here, but society itself that did not make place to be inclusive, because here Pluto now is going to retrograde into Capricorn. He's no longer in Capricorn right now. He's not in Capricorn. He's in Aquarius. It's humanity. It's not the government now. It was the government. There are still things to do with the government. Now we're talking about humanity. What about humanity? Okay, the j'accuse, the pointing the finger of blame or of responsibility is now beginning to be pointed at society itself. Okay? Nobody would get nobody would get to the situation of Britney Spears if we were inclusive towards neurodivergent people. This is society. It's not the government. If you think Britney Spears is a crazy person that doesn't speak truth, that doesn't this, that doesn't that, you are the problem, my darling. You are Hitler, not the government, not the doctors. You are the Hitlers. Okay? Aries is a big reminder of that. She's a very slow-moving planet. So, I will be having an Aries episode with somebody who knows way more than me about this asteroid, this planet, than that is planned for a spirit of matter. So, in the meantime, should you be afraid of this new moon? No. There are a lot of things that many of you are waiting for to culminate. And can you expect just walking away and severing ties the way Venus wants to do? No. And Aries is going to inconveniently help the situation because it's a square. Okay, she does not come to harm, but she's definitely disruptive when she meets in the square. It's like somebody comes to save you, but they come from a certain angle that you feel like they're attacking you. Okay, they're not attacking you. That's just the angle that they come from, but they're not coming for you. They're coming for your opponent just as much. Okay. So that is what I have to say about this. We will all be affected to some degree. Again, think about 2022, June 2022. Think about 6 months ago. What started at the new moon in Gemini, where 6 months ago it was May, April, March, February, January, December. So December 22. Okay, so think back to December 22, think back to June 22. Something is culminating, and my God, do I feel that the lives of people who will try to invalidate the voice of the individual, okay, by any scientific dogma,
my God, is this not a good time for that in history? Okay, it's just no. Nobody cares about how what excuses you find for your racism, your oppression, your Nazi approach to work or to labor, your support in slavery, or what. Nobody cares what the paradigm, what religion, what scientific. Nobody cares. Okay, you do that, you're dead. Okay? And this is coming from a position of wisdom. It's not coming from a position. Aries is not in 0 degrees. She's approaching the final degrees of Aries. Okay, she's not a silly, naive person anymore. Think about, if you talk about psychology, think about the person that believed that people didn't believe them because they couldn't believe such a difficult thing can happen to a person. And then they find out that people did believe them. They just gaslighted them all along because they didn't want them to have their own recovery because they are offenders, network of offenders. Inside academia, inside this, inside that, but here it is the people. So Aries comes with a certain wisdom from 24, 25 degrees of Aries. That's a couple of decades, okay? Um, and that is important. This should be an episode in itself. While Pluto is only beginning to tiptoe into Aquarius. So Pluto now is kind of like, wait, what? You're bringing stuff from 300 years ago? I just stepped in the door. I don't even know, like, I didn't even find how to clean the dust for what's going on. So Pluto is not really getting at what Aries is already getting. She's like, I know you're going to do that. And so Aries could be projecting in this sense. But she's also saying things that are very wise, that are very true. And Pluto's just stepped into the door of Aquarius now. He's stepping and it's like, oh my gosh, it's horrid here. And it's like, isn't that right? And you say, well, it's so dirty. It's so, the streets are so dirty. It's like, oh, the streets are dirty. Do you know what else is okay? And that is, it's kind of like, well, it looks so unclean here, and Aries is like, you think that the dirt that you see on the pavement is the dirt that is here. Uh-huh. Okay. Congratulations. Um, so here we have this fierce conflict. Okay. Pluto has just stepped in the doorway and Aries is holding him accountable and it's like, wait, but darling, what are you, what, like, I just stepped in the door. And she's right, but he doesn't even understand what she's talking about. While Venus, she just wants to sever ties, say bye bye. Just like, okay, I'll pay that $50. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, I found that report. Just get me out of here. Let me go to Leo. But Aries is like, do you remember how many times you've been in this exact situation? Just keep repeating itself. Doesn't anything more need to do? It's like, what, the Shoah? And Aries like, well, no, that never solved any problem. Well, did your walking out time and time again solve any problem? They're having this very fruitful conversation that is not resolved, but actually where Ketu is and Humia is about fertility, but Ketu is approaching, we are purging diplomacy here. And that's something we need to be very cautious of because we are purging diplomacy and we need this luck, we need this magic to interfere. Um, but the upside is that we are also composting time. We're also with Pluto and Saturn Sun, we are composting time. It literally means that the notions of karma that were relevant to our generations are getting rejuvenation. Okay, it's like those biblical times where it's no longer the father ate rotten fruits or raw fruits and the teeth of the children are rotten, but now the children can do something about this. And what their fathers, what their parents did is no longer affecting or no longer affecting to this degree. Um, so there's a new notion of karma, okay, that is emerging here. Think about revolutions. Revolution necessitate a certain change in the notion of karma. If you have, if a child is being trafficked and you look at it as like this is the karma of the child, maybe they were a villain in the past life, then you change nothing. Okay, you are at peace with the fact that certain horrid atrocities happen, and the times of revolution tell you no, this child is not to blame. Who he was, past life, this life, I don't care. This is a child. In this life, this is a child. Nobody should risk the life of this child. Okay, they should learn how to behave in a civil way. But other than that, nobody needs to harm them, to rape them, to traffic them, to this. No. Okay, do I want the person that tried to do that to me when I was 9 years old? Do I want this person to go to next life and then to be the this and me be offended? No. No. I want this to change. To change karma, okay, to interfere in the fabric of time. And those are the type of times where it does happen. With Pluto in Saturn sign, we are decomposing, we're composting the fabrics of time. And that's why there's so many scientific revolutions. Anyway, um, a tiny moon to man, but a big step to the universe. And I'll leave you with that. I don't see a reason to do the 12 ascendants because it, it's like for each sign, where is Taurus, where is this, where is that, it's too much. um I don't think you need to be particularly, you pretty much, I gave you pretty much the steps that you need to think about. Other than that, it would already be a personal reading, which I don't think is necessary for a lunation. There's something you would go for a more personal reason, and not yet bookable. So um, I'll just leave you with that, and thank you for watching.